to the HANSA.newscast. I'm Janne Silden, and today I'm joined by Emmanuel Schalit, CEO of OceanWings. Emmanuel, thanks a lot for being here today.
Well, Janne, thanks infinitely for having me. It's a pleasure to join this most important podcast in our shipping industry.
Thank you. And I would like to start this episode by getting to know you a bit better. Through your studies and your career, it's clear that you're very much into the world of mathematics. So what do you love about it?
Oh, that takes us pretty far back. It's true that a long time ago, I did a PhD in applied mathematics, but it was actually more AI and robotics. The topic of my PhD thesis was navigation algorithms for Mars exploration rovers. So on the surface, it looks very far from what I'm doing today, but surprisingly, there are lots of things in common, because it was the early days of AI and the early days of neural network, and hold and behold, we are building robotic systems to allow ship owners to use the wind.
Yeah. So let's then dive directly into the wind-assisted propulsion. I would argue it is already proven and commercially trusted by ship owners and charterers. Do you agree?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, yes, with the fact that it is proven. Early players in this market have been in operation now for 15 years. And so the concept didn't appear last week. And not only that, but a number of companies, including OceanWings, have had systems in operation on commercial vessels, deep sea vessels, for years now, and with results that are clear and unquestionable. If I take just the example of the vessel you see behind me, Canopée, it's a RoRo vessel operating in the North Sea and across the Atlantic, transporting rocket components for the European Space Agency. It's done about 15 or 16 transatlantic trips now. And the shipowner, not us, has been able to measure the savings in a unique way, because that vessel actually operated for 7 months before the wings were installed on the same route. And so he has a great baseline to compare to. The end result is that after 2 years in operation, the shipowner has reported an average savings of 35% of fuel and emissions. And that's just one example in the industry. So I think the technology is proven in terms of seaworthiness and in terms of savings potential. That said, I wouldn't say that all ship owners have already made the decision that they will implement it, because as we know, shipping is not an industry that can adopt technology at an extremely fast pace, for lots of good reasons.
Yeah. So let's get into a bit of the technical details, because OceanWings has developed rigid wing sails for the shipping fleet, while the most implemented wind-assisted propulsion technology today is rotor sails. So in simple practical terms, what makes the lift effect, from what we know from aeroplanes, more efficient than the Magnus effect from Flettner rotors?
Great question. And when you look at the history of the adoption of wind propulsion, you see 3 waves of companies. So the first companies 15, 16 years ago started with rotor sails that are based on the Magnus effect, which is a technology that has been in the public domain for many, many years. Which has a number of advantages, including its simplicity in terms of manufacturing, but also its simplicity in terms of automation. Because the key thing to remember is commercial vessels, the crews of these commercial vessels, they are not sailors that are gonna spend all of their time trimming a wind propulsion system. It has to be automated. And so it was a great starting point for the wind propulsion industry. And even today, It's a technology that has significant traction. You then had a second wave of, so a flathead rotor is a big rotating cylinder that creates lift with what you rightly call the Magnus effect. And then you had a second wave of technology that's mostly called suction sails that appeared a few years after rotors, where it's still a big cylinder, but instead of rotating the cylinder, you put fans at the top, you suck air, and you create lift this way. It has a few advantages compared to rotors. It's slightly more complex. It's harder to make it at big size. And then more recently, I would say mostly since 2023, you've had players like OceanWings and like others that have launched wing sails. Now, you could say, well, why haven't we had wing sails? What are the advantages and why haven't we had wing sails from the beginning? When you and I take an airplane and we look outside the window, we don't see big rotating cylinders or fans, we see wings. It's not that the industry had not discovered that wings are the optimal aerodynamic shape. It is that to have an automated system based on a wing required things in terms of computers, in terms of control algorithms, and in terms of sensors that was not really available 15 years ago, but today it is. So what are the advantages of wing sails? They have to do with a very simple fact, which is that commercial vessels travel fast. Because they travel fast, compared to the average speed of the wind, most of the time, let's say 85% of the time, the wind is going to come from the front of the vessel. That's a critical factor in understanding wind propulsion. Some systems, actually all systems, perform really well when the wind comes from the side, but that is only 10-15% of the time. 85% of the time, the wind comes from the front. And in that configuration, nothing beats a wing sail in terms of thrust. But it took more time for these systems to be reliable and fully automated on board commercial vessels.
Yeah, so you said that it's all, so the much of the performance is now about algorithms and data optimization.
So that's a very good observation. If I look at our results and how we plan on improving them in the future, today a vessel like Canopée, in average over the last 2 years, this vessel has 4 OceanWings, and they all look like this. It's a 2-element wing sail, just like the wing of an airplane, but vertical. Each wing saves, in average, 1.3 tons of fuel per day in operation. So 5.2 tons for the whole vessel. That's the current performance. Our objective by the end of 2028 is to have improved that by 50%. So to get above 2 tons per day. And the improvement is not going to come from the aerodynamic shape, which is already optimal. It is going to come from the work we are doing on AI to optimize how these systems operate with each other and how they operate with the rest of the behavior of the vessel, the propeller, the rudder, and the hull of the vessel. That is why today, if you look at our team, a quarter of our team actually is focused solely on these AI and performance aspects.
Yeah. So that also involved then, I presume, route optimization and this kind of stuff too. So it has, it requires quite a good dialogue with the ship operators, doesn't it, to optimize it?
It absolutely does. So we are in a business where everything starts and ends with the customer. The primary customer is indeed the ship owner, but as you know, in our industry, it's more complex. When you have a long-term charter contract, the charter is also involved in these decisions. But the shipyard and the ship designers are key partners in making these decisions. Where do we implement our wings on the vessel? How many do we install? What will give the best payback? So we have to work in these complex ecosystems of shipyards, ship owners, ship designers, and charterers to get to the optimum solution for the client, which at the end of the day is about the best possible payback.
Yeah. So, what do you see as the next step for OceanWings to move into industrial scaling?
Great question. And the question of industrial scaling is important because when you consider the target market, you have a global fleet of 100,000 vessels total. Of these, about 45,000 are deep sea vessels, the one where wind propulsion really makes sense. 45,000 vessels, that's an enormous task to get them to the point where all of them will use wind propulsion. That's why we are glad we have other competitors with other technologies, because we're not going to do that just ourselves. So there is room for lots of very powerful companies to become players in wind propulsion. That's number one. And the key challenge is, how do you scale rapidly? A big change we have seen in our commercial pipeline is that 12 or 18 months ago, the discussions we had with ship owners were about one vessel, one retrofit, one new build. Today, about a third of our commercial pipeline are for potential fleet orders. So a ship owner looking at building 4 or 6 sister ships, and they want to equip them with all the same wind propulsion technology. And then their question becomes, okay, the first new build is going to be in 2 years, but then the next one is going to come 2 months later and 2 months later and 2 months later. How can you guarantee me that you can deliver not just the first 4 or 6 sails, but that 2 months later you can deliver an additional 6 and an additional 6? So it's been a key element of our thinking. And we've built our supply chain with one key principle, which is to reuse existing technology, processes, and infrastructure. And we've looked at what we thought was the best industry to take inspiration from, which is the wind turbine industry. Today in the world, this industry delivers 400,000 wind turbine blades per year. It's a gigantic industry. And so our rigid wing sails, all the key components are actually made exactly like wind turbine components, with the same kinds of suppliers in the same kinds of factories, which gives us a capacity. If I take one example, the supplier that builds the blades, these 33-meter high blades that make an OceanWings, it's a wind turbine, an offshore wind turbine factory company in China, in Shanghai, that can produce 1 per day. So already our capacity is more than 150 or 200 wings per year because we have reused existing technology. But the second thing that impacts that is it's not just about how quickly you can build them, but how quickly can you install them. And here, again, we have taken inspiration from the wind turbine industry. Most of our competitors, if not all, including us when we did Canopée, we assembled the full wing in our factory and we have to ship then this complex large object wherever the ship is going to be retrofitted or newly built. That is not very scalable. And if you look at how the wind turbine industry works, they actually build the components. All the components are sent to the site and assembled on site. With the new version of our wing, we've actually replicated that principle. All the components are built in the optimal location given where the shipyards are, mostly in Asia. Those components are sent to the shipyard where the installation will take place. And the installation is the final steps are sufficiently simple that they can be done by the shipyard with assistance from our team, which gives us an ability to scale very fast. So the next step for OceanWing, now that we've put in place this global supply chain largely based in Asia, because this is where most of the action is, China, Japan, and Korea, is to actually see that acceleration. In fact, the next installation we are going to do will be on the retrofit of a bulker vessel in a shipyard in Japan in January.
Wow. So, with all this set up, so what's your delivery time then compared to others? Like, it sounds like you must be shorter on delivery time.
Today, we have the capacity to go as low as 6 months for an Asian-based, for let's say a China-based installation, which is the bigger part of the market. But we have the ambition to reduce that to 4 months in the next 2 years.
Sounds
And
ambitious.
I think it's going to be critical. We think it's going to be critical because today there is more supply than demand in the market. Ship owners have not all moved in mass, but with the hopefully likely adoption of GFS in a few weeks, we think the market will go through an acceleration, which will lead to a phase where there is actually more demand than capacity.
Yeah. So, Emmanuel, to wrap this up, back to you. So you studied music more recently, and I like this whole technology stuff. So how does music and the love for technology and AI and algorithm have in common?
Well, I think you identified one common thread. So it's true that I, before taking the full-time role of CEO of OceanWings, I was actually doing a master's of film composition at Berkeley College in Boston, remotely. And music has always been a long-time passion. But I think the common thread between all of these things is how you blend technology and humanity. Music has been considerably influenced by technology, including classical and orchestral music. And my fascination for how humans interact and do things with technology is what has driven me there and drives me today to do what we do at OceanWings.
Emmanuel, thanks a lot for your insights, going from wind to math and to music. I really loved it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the pleasure of joining your podcast today.
Thanks for listening to HANSA.newscast. Subscribe now for more insights and stories from the world of shipping. And feel free to visit HANSA.news and sign up for the HANSA newsletter to stay up to date. And hey, see you at the next episode. Bye.